Hey guys, my name is Meshack Canyon. I'm a pastor of Friendship United Methodist Church in Wyoming, Ohio. And as I said at the end of the previous video that started this mini-series, my hope in making these videos about racial reconciliations in communities is simply to begin or help advance a conversation that could help people think differently about some of our long-standing issues in relation to race. So in today's video, I want to address something that usually ends most conversations about race before it can even begin. That is white supremacy. As soon as most people hear those words, their defense mechanisms begin to flare up, right? And rather than listening, they'll either begin mentally preparing a defense for themselves, or they'll start finding a way out of the conversation altogether. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if many people right now are clicking off because you're just overwhelmed with conversations about race. And listen, I get it, man, but that's exactly why we need to have meaningful dialogue that helps us think things through in a non-condemning manner. Because the reason people react that way is because when most people think about white supremacy, images of extremist groups like the KKK or neo-Nazis or the Proud Boys that have been all over the news recently, those images pop into people's minds. And most people would be properly offended at the slightest suggestion that someone might be trying to associate them with those extremist groups. So at the very outset, I think it's important for us to understand that white supremacy doesn't refer to a group. It refers to a system of ideas. And yes, this system of ideas has created extremists like the aforementioned groups or individuals who take those ideas to the extreme. But a person doesn't have to be a member of one of those groups to be governed or impacted by ideology that is white supremacy. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that the world would be a much better place if the only outward expression of white supremacy was in the formation of some of those extremist groups. Don't you agree? I mean, because then all we'd have to do is monitor them, right? It'd be kind of like the way we monitor the flat earth communities. We know they exist, we know where they are, we know when they meet, but their ideas have little to no power over the way things work in the world because we refuse to let them have such power. We refuse to believe their story about the way the world is. But unfortunately, that's not the case with white supremacy in America, because here, the most dangerous form of white supremacy is not actually the extremist groups, but it's the insidious ideas that have seeped into almost every aspect of life. Because white supremacy, in its simplest form, is nothing more than the power to tell a story about the nature of reality. And the story white supremacy has been telling has caused people to see the world from a perspective in which some people are advantaged because of the color of their skin, while other people are disadvantaged, to say the least, because of the color of their skin. For example, studies have shown that many people believe that black men are more violent and prone to commit more crimes than their white counterparts are. Studies have also shown that many people believe that white people are more dependable than people of color. This is all white supremacy at work. It even impacts what we consider to be beautiful. I googled beautiful women, and look, the screen is primarily filled with images of thin white women with a sprinkling of a different skin color every now and again. All of these ideas, you see, emerge from a system of thought that suggests that one color is inherently better than another color. And there are many more examples out there. But what happens is they seep into our subconscious minds beyond the level of active awareness, and they create these biases or these prepackaged assessments that govern our behaviors. In other words, they cause us to see reality a certain way. And once we see reality a certain way, we act upon the things that we perceive. For instance, this is why 1% of Fortune 500 companies have black CEOs. It's why resumes with names that sound black are passed over for resumes with names that sound white. It's why people of color are profiled at a much higher clip than white people, and on and on and on it goes. Now, I'm sharing this video first because it's something that everyone simply needs to acknowledge before trying to create wide-scale reform in other places. Because what good will it do to bring about reform if the underlying system of thought upon which the reform is being built is rooted in white supremacist ideology? The root of the problem is so pervasive in the idea system that governs our world, that if it were possible to pull the thread of white supremacy out of the fabric of life in America, the entire garment would literally fall apart and fall on the ground. If you watched the first presidential debate, you would have seen when President Trump was asked by the moderator to denounce white supremacists. Then they mentioned a specific group, the Proud Boys. Well, as I was listening to him respond, I thought to myself, what they're asking him to do is way too easy. What should have been asked of him, instead of to denounce white supremacists, is what they need to ask of him and of every American. That is, to renounce the ideas of white supremacy that have been governing our lands for many generations. Because to simply denounce something, that's simply making a condemnation of something that's external to you, like a group. But when you renounce something, you're admitting that at one point, the thing you're renouncing had an internal and personal impact on your life. But from this day forth, you're saying, I'm not going to have anything to do with that. I'm done with this. I renounce it. And the greater and more transformative work that needs to take place will only begin as people renounce white supremacy and all that accompanies it. All Americans, whether naturally born or here by immigration, need to renounce the idea system that is white supremacy, whether it's worked to your personal advantage or not. And until that happens, we'll make very little progress on the road towards racial justice. Well, listen, I know this was a short video. I'm keeping them short because my hope is that they'll generate more conversation on your part. In the next short video, I'm going to show you how it is that these ideas are established in our minds, and then how we can begin rooting them out once we understand how they're sewn into our minds. So thanks again for watching. Take care, guys.